Good afternoon and welcome back to Russell Does Stuff. My name is Russell. This is my YouTube channel and I work 6 hours on Monday, 6 hours on Tuesday, and whatever I don't get done on Monday or Tuesday, I'll finish up on Wednesday. Tomorrow I have to work about an hour and a half because I didn't get any of that work done today. I got home today about 12:03. So the reason I was 3 minutes late was because I was driving slow and I had like a cement mixer in my way. So no big deal. Today's topic is employees. And I challenged myself to see if I could remember all of my employees that I've had work for me and with me over the lifetime of my entrepreneurship business life. And I'm sure I'm going to leave some guys out because I can't remember everybody. But I've said in past videos, I've had like 60 employees. And I'm not kidding. And I can't believe I'm not kidding. It's probably a lot more than 60. But I'll wake up in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning and go, oh, I forgot to add him to the list. I already did that today. I forgot to put Brandon on this list today. Just took me a few minutes, probably a half a minute, to jot down all these guys' names. When you're in a blue collar work, labor, you're working with your hands and stuff, the amount of people that you can hire is limited. Okay, you got your doctors and your astronauts up here, and then you going down the list, and then you got, grocery store managers, you've got people with tech skills, you've got all these different type jobs before you even get to labor, concrete, plumbing, HVAC, landscape and lawn care, farming, So it's hard in this business, or any of the businesses I've been in. They've required knowledge of tools, or will teach you how to use tools, trucks, equipment, lifts, machinery, etc. It's a tough little window to hire from, and I didn't realize that that was my window that I was hiring. I had somebody explain it to me, one with an attorney or something. He goes, "The reason you're having problems hiring people is because the window that you're trying to hire in is so small." So it's like a Dave Letterman top 10 list, I guess. But I wrote them all in different orders from the businesses and stuff that I've owned. I've owned, like, I think 12 companies over my lifetime. I don't know why I put him up here on the top of this list, but some of these guys had nicknames, okay? This guy, I don't know why he's number one. He wasn't a bad dude. He was kind of quiet, and he just had really messed up teeth. I mean, like buck teeth that hung out a lot farther than normal. And he was tall, and he had yellow hair. So I guess, he kind of looked like the dude on The Simpsons. His nickname was Smiley. Okay. Before I get into his story, this is going to go quick. When you can only hire in this window, it makes things difficult. So I'm not hiring the world's brightest minds. Okay, I'm not even the world's brightest mind. I'm dumb enough to try to hire some of these people, But I had no choice. I was trying to grow a company, and I ran ads. I did all the same protocol that one would use if they were looking for a job. Okay, back then, there was Craigslist and the newspaper. Okay, look, help wanted. All right, your phone would blow up. Then the newspapers stopped having help wanted ads, and the newspaper industry was failing. So how do you get employees? You call up personnel companies and you try to hire that way, but a lot of that stuff's expensive. So a lot of these people approached me. They seen me at a gas station or would come knock on my door because they saw I had tools. Oh, this guy must be hiring. He's carrying around tools on him. This guy's name was Smiley. That wasn't his real name. That was his nickname. A lot of these guys, I tried to mentor these guys. They asked me for help. Can you mentor me? Can you help me get out of the situation I'm in? I said, well, the only way you're going to do that is by working hard, saving your money, going to church, you know, doing this different, stop doing that, say no to drugs, all that good stuff. All right. All these guys always had beer and always had cigarettes. No matter how broke they were, they had smokes and drink. That was one of the biggest issues I had with these guys is I would jump out of my truck, I'd be on a piece of equipment, and they would be lighting a cigarette up. All right. Let's go. I'm driving, putting the car in park, opening the door, getting out, opening up trailers, getting all this equipment ready, and they get out of the cab and they're lighting a cigarette up. So if you're going to use your hands and smoke at the same time, you have to have the cigarette in your mouth. So I tried to implement a no smoking policy. All right, that didn't. These guys would try to sneak smokes when I was getting the mail or running into the bank, and I was moving and grooving so fast they'd get frustrated with me. I didn't even have time to smoke my cigarette. Yeah, because we got to get to the next job. Then the cell phones came along, and then I would make the younger kids that I was mentoring that asked me for help. I'd have them put it in the glove box, and then they start carrying it in their pocket. And they'd be around a building, talking to their girlfriend or something, It was real frustrating being a boss, all right? Because you don't want to make them mad. You don't want to be their best friend, but you got to find some place in the middle. So Smiley needed a job. He wanted to change his life. Smiley, for as ugly as he was a pimp. He sold drugs, all right? And he had some of the most beautiful women on the planet in and out of his apartment. I don't do drugs. I learned about drugs from hiring people, okay? I had no idea what meth was and all this other stuff was until I hired people that came up to me, said they wanted to change their lives, they wanted an opportunity. Can I provide them with that? All right. They provided me with an education on the underworld of whatever. He was a pimp. He sold drugs. Harmless as a kitten. All right. He had charges on him and stuff, and he might even be in jail. I don't think this guy could ever die. He's going to live forever like the guy in the Green Mile. Just going to live on forever and ever and ever. I had a lot of Bills working for me. I had Bill, Billy, Bill, Bill number one I had working with me in my cabinet shop. When you need money and you need a job, you don't tell the boss that you're addicted to crack. You leave that stuff out on the application where it says hobbies and interests. That's when you put I like crack. You put that right there in that space provided. So Billy hid his crack addiction from me. All right, ended up kicking him off the property, and remember, I let some of these people use vehicles and phones and gas cards and stuff, all right? Because I'm trying to conduct business, and you need to lubricate the system so you're more efficient. And that means giving people vehicles and trucks and stuff, because you got to send them out to jobs and things, all right? Crackhead. I think he's straightened his life up from what I heard, and he's working in an apartment complex as the maintenance manager. But he decided to have a crack problem while he was working for me. Bill number two, this guy was interesting. We call him Dances with Routers. He liked to do meth and drink. All right. He didn't eat food. He was the skinniest guy on the planet and the most talented woodworker I've ever seen and met in my life. He was actually in a bar once, and he said something derogatory about George Bush. And they investigated this guy, and he has a piece of paper in a frame saying that he's no menace to society. All right. And then this other guy, his name is Charlie. He was one of my employees. He was a surfer from California. had his hair in a ponytail. He was probably in his 60s. He hid the fact that he liked, I don't even know how you add up the alcohol content in some of his stuff, the stuff that he drank. He drank some of the most high octane alcohol on the planet that wasn't moonshine, all right? He was a heavy drinker. I tried my best to help him change his life. And if you don't want to change your life, you're not gonna. He was a nice guy. He did my finishing on my cabinet doors and all my cabinets and stuff I made. He was my finisher. And he'd come in one morning shaking, I need $2. And I'm like, why do you need $2, Charlie? He goes, if you want all these doors sprayed and stained and stuff, I need a beer. Beep, 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 beep. I give him $2, he'd go grab a beer. And then he would quit shaking. I had this one guy, he was my manager. His name was Arturo. And this guy dressed nice, nice shoes, nice pants, spoke 3 or 4 different languages. He was a ladies' man, okay? He would take the world's longest bathroom breaks. He would sit in the bathroom. Instead of using the bathroom, he would have conversations with his girlfriends all over the place. And he ended up stealing a truck and a debit card and a phone from me, okay? I had to get Alltel to track him down, and finally I found him. He was out to dinner with his girlfriend's family, buying him a big meal on my tab. Antonio, another guy, good guy. I mean, he'd work his butt off. He was a solid hard worker, company man. Once he started making a whole bunch of money, he started having family problems and he started doing drugs, okay? Mirrors were found, spoons and all that stuff in my box trucks. I didn't know what that stuff was. This paraphernalia, all right? I guess if you do drugs, you need things in order to do drugs with. So I'm getting an education, all right? Billy, the crackhead, would take my tools and turn them into crack pipes. If he cut his finger cutting a crack ball, he'd say he was trying to get the lock open on the door and cut his finger or something. He'd make up some story. I think Antonio is still alive, but I'm not sure. I think drugs have ruined his life and he's no longer recognizable. Okay. Then I had a young kid come to me, age 18 or so. His name was Daniel. He was about this tall. And he's a good kid. And he worked for one of my companies for, I bet you, 18 years, making a lot of money. And his problem was DUIs. He liked to collect DUIs. So he's got a fistful of DUIs. He's still alive, but he's not useful to anyone because he can't drive a vehicle. He has to be driven around, okay? We've all had that employee where they don't have a license, but you need them because they're the best at what they do, and you drive them around. I had a guy named Mike. He's on this list. Mike here, he's a crackhead. He kept that a secret from me also, all right? He was the best at doing the aluminum work. So I had to drive him to the jobs because he had no driver's license. But he always had crack, okay? Mike, from the last I heard, 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, he's off drugs. He's cleaned his life up. He decided instead of cleaning his life up while he was working for me, he would do it in another decade, all right? We had a guy named Darren. This guy used to walk by this place I was renting, and he always had a fancy watch on. He was always looking at his watch when he was walking by my house. I'd get home 5:30, 6 o'clock. I'd be out getting my equipment ready for the next day, and he'd come walking by looking at his watch, wearing nice clothes and stuff. And I never knew why until I hired him, why he always looked at his watch. So Darren needed a job and he came to me. He had a family, a wife, and some kids. He needed money. I started bringing him to work with me. He didn't know how to do any labor or anything, and I was like, all right, I'll teach you, okay? So then he started getting anger issues and stuff, and he wanted a big percent of the jobs, okay, that I had. And we ended up falling out of love with each other, and he ended up getting in trouble with the law, and I think he moved back to Seattle or somewhere. I just remembered another one. Matty. This guy's name was Matty. Matt. Big guy, nice guy. He was a good friend of mine. He lived down the street from me when I was renting one of those not so nice rentals when I was on my way up. One of those rentals where I had no furniture. I was stealing water. I was stealing electric and stuff like that. I had Matty working for me. That was his nickname. He was addicted to heroin. But he was always going to church, always going to the food bank, always nice to people, always helping everybody out. He moved real fast. Super nice guy. I took him to Cracker Barrel all the time. I let him come to work with me so he could make money. I think he was getting a check from the government. He ended up having a heroin overdose. I guess from what Danette told me, she messaged me maybe 3 or 4 years ago that he got fentanyl in some drugs he was doing, and the people he was partying with, I think he was with a hooker, dropped him off at the emergency room and drove away. He's dead. He used to call me all the time. This guy actually, he fell through the ceiling of a house I was putting an air conditioner in, all right? And he'd have anger issues and he'd want more money and this and that. He fell through the ceiling of a house, all right? I had to whip out my drywall experience and fix the stuff and all that. But I couldn't have him working with me anymore because all these silent issues that he was keeping from me. So he died. I'm sad he died. He had a lot of potential. He was a smart guy. All right. He'd go Russ, you know. He just would always brighten up my day with his sense of humor and stuff. And he would sing songs to me that, you know, were from the 80s. You know, hey, let's go install some microwaves. And, you know, that one song, that MTV, microwave ovens, and whatever that song was. He was always humming that song. Good dude. All right. Then I had this other guy named Billy. I had another Billy. And this Billy came to me and asked me for work. He wanted to clean his life up also. Now, I'm not picking on any of these people. This is true stories, okay? I'm not picking on them. I'm not making any of this stuff up. This is real, okay? This kid, Billy, I had him helping me while I was painting apartments, doing lawn care, cutting trees down, doing trash outs and stuff. He wasn't real athletic, but he was good, you know, with the handyman stuff and trash outs. As long as it wasn't too complicated, he was good. I don't think he had a drug problem. I couldn't figure him out, all right? But I think he did heroin once in a while. He liked to just drink and be left alone when he wasn't working. One day I felt an overwhelming sense of, hey, Billy, let's go paint these apartments. You know, let's go keep working on these apartments. You need to come with me and we need to paint these apartments today. And he didn't want to. He said he needed a break and he was tired or whatever. And I said, no, you really have to. I just feel like you need to come with me and we need to just get this painting knocked out on this apartment we were working on. He said no. Later on that evening, he went to this house he was renting a room from. He went up on the roof. He stuck his hand. He lost his balance. And some of them skylights back then were made of plastic. So he was up on this roof doing something for the landlord he was living at. He set his beer down. He reached over to get his beer, lost his balance, put his hand on the plastic skylight. It broke. he hit his head on the floor. All right. So he can no longer work for me. I don't know if he's alive or not. He may have passed away. I'm not sure. All right. The last I heard about him, he was underneath the Siesta Key Bridge hanging out. Okay. Cody. I had another kid named Cody. Good kid. I actually hired him because somebody asked me to hire him. Good kid. Had a lot of issues. This guy couldn't decide if he was this or he was that. He was heavy into drugs. He'd stay up all night and doing drugs and had girl problems and all that. And which it doesn't work. When you're living this type of lifestyle, you're no good to an employer, okay? The next day you're hungover, you're tired, whatever, okay? I think he's in jail. Last I heard about him, he was walking down Bee Ridge Road in Sarasota, okay? He might be in jail. Not sure. Next kid that came up to me, I was at a gas station. I was at a racetrack. This guy's name's Tyler. He came up to me and asked me for a job. He had his girlfriend with him. They had a newborn baby, and he was there pumping gas, seen my equipment, asked me for a job. I said, give me your phone number. I'm always looking, all right? And he got a paper plate out of the garbage can and wrote his number down with my pen that I gave him. About a month later, I called Taylor and I said, hey, I got this big job. You want to come help me? So he came and helped me, and he did good for like 2 weeks. And I said, you want to change your life? He said, yeah. So I spent $20,000 on accounts so that I would have enough work for Taylor to do and work with me, because I was still building my company up. So we had a meeting, we did a handshake, I purchased the accounts, and the next thing you know, he started smoking pot and drinking a lot and staying up late and just having real erratic behavior. Okay. I bought this kid a truck, found him places to stay. I let him stay on my property, gave him a shower, trying to help him with his money. I got a savings account going for him, and I told him, the day that, give it 3 months, you'll have enough money so where you can put, get your girlfriend out of her mom's house and your daughter, and you guys will have enough money for first, last, and deposit on an apartment. You asked me for that money, any early or any of that, we're done, we're fired, you're fired, it's over with. We were at a gas station, and he seen his drug dealer. He turned and looked at me and said, I want all my money. I said, are you sure? He said, yes. I gave him all the money he saved up. He jumped out of my truck. I finished pumping my gas. Within 10 minutes, he got arrested. He went into the racetrack. This is another racetrack, because I went to racetracks a lot because I could get trailers and trucks in there. Some of the 7-Elevens are hard to get into. So on my route, I would hit racetracks. Their pumps are pretty secure, and I don't have to worry about credit card fraud and debit card fraud a lot. He went in there and opened up a large beer, shotgunned it, bought a bunch of drugs off his drug dealer, and got arrested. 10 minutes. He was arrested. Went to jail, got out, went back into jail. I think he lives in Texas with his girlfriend. Hopefully he's cleaned his act up. I haven't heard from him since. There's this little kid here named Eric. He was in his 30s. About this tall. Good kid. He liked to play video games and smoke pot all day long. He had lawn care experience and landscape experience, so I hired him. He ended up having girlfriend problems and staying up late and drinking and all that stuff, and ended up quitting on me. He was tearing up a foxtail pond with a saw, and I asked him what was going on. He had a bad attitude. He quit. I dropped him off in the front of this neighborhood on Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, and last I saw him, he was out like in a picnic area. I was walking my dogs. He was with his girlfriend. He started yelling profanities at me and stuff, and he ended up going into the lawn business, and I would see him driving around town and stuff. I don't think he's in the lawn business anymore. He may have moved back to Cape Coral, and he's probably living with his sister, okay? Or he's dead, I don't know. I don't think he'd be dead because he wasn't doing real detrimental things, to himself. I hired this one guy named Rob. I ran an ad on the internet. And that's how I met wonderful Rob. Rob was a laid-back surfer dude, okay? And he lived his life like a TV star. He had an extensive criminal background. He was a property manager, and he swindled all his customers out of all their money, okay? He didn't tell me any of this stuff in the interview, all right? We looked him up before we hired him, and I asked him about his time in jail and all that, and he said he was a new man. He changed his life. He said once he crawled under a 12-pack, he would do bad things, like take people's money. So he quit drinking. He was going to AA and doing all this great stuff, and he was actually one of my better workers. He worked really hard and was on time and showed up all the time. He eventually thought he deserved more money. He decided to start missing a bunch of work, and eventually I had to fire him. Okay. I also hired another surfer dude. He only lasted about 3 days. I forget his name to save my life, but he would go to Bimini in the Bermuda Triangle, and he would work with some tourist outfit or something, and he'd like to do a lot of diving and stuff. He was a good guy. He just wasn't motivated to do any work. If I turned my back on him, he would be across the street talking to someone that we didn't work for 30 minutes or so. He had bad habits of not wanting to work, all right? He ended up cutting himself with a chainsaw on one of my jobs. Little Eric, he cut me with a chainsaw once, put me in the emergency room. I still paid him for that day's worth of work. I had another guy. I think the surfer dude's probably living in the Bermuda Triangle and living it up, man. He had that, laid back personality, and those guys normally do pretty good. All right. They don't have a lot of emotional problems and stuff because they're just so laid back that, life's problems don't ever bother them. I had a guy named Sweaty. This was his nickname. This dude just was a sweaty guy all the time, and so that was his name, Sweaty. He had talent and stuff, but he didn't want to get along with anybody. So we ended up parting ways, and last I saw he was at Home Depot. He looked good. He looked like he straightened his life out, which was good. I had an aluminum business. I probably had 15 to 20 guys. I can't even remember their names. I remember I hired this one guy named Cowboy and his son. They were good workers, but once they got a job started, then they would hold that over your head and ask for more money, or, or my tools broke on your job. I need more tools or whatever and stuff. And he died. His son's still alive, but I liked them. They were good dudes. I hired a young kid, maybe 11 years ago. He was on drugs too. I think he had a heroin problem, and he was sober for a couple weeks. He was on Suboxone or whatever that was, and he would always come up to me and say, "Hey, if you got any openings, let me know. I need to get out and work. I need to get out and work. I need to work." And I said, "All right, you beat me down. I'll hire you." And he started working for me. He acted like working for me changed his life. He was bragging to all his drug buddies and his lowlifes about how working for me had changed his life. So I thought there was a glimmer of hope with this guy. I ended up having to fire him, okay, because he stopped coming in on time and he was looking rough and I didn't want him around my customers. He ended up ODing in the bathroom of a 7-Eleven. All right. I don't know what's going on with him. He may be dead. He may be alive. I don't know. But a good kid. You know, he just couldn't get it together. Now this is where it gets good. All right. I hire a guy named Lee and his cousin Marty. Lee got out of jail, was trying to turn his life around. Marty wasn't a troublemaker, never got into trouble or anything. He was a good guy. All right. Very talented guy. All right. One of those guys that could build and make anything. Very talented. As long as these guys were working, they were fine. So Lee and Marty started hanging out more and they started getting in trouble. They started doing drugs. They got back into doing crack and meth and all this other nonsense. These guys broke into my house a couple times when I went camping. Remember, I didn't have money to go on nice vacations, so I would take these $25 camping trips on a river out in the middle of Florida just to have a little break, okay? And instead of keeping an eye on my stuff, they were stealing my stuff, okay? So Lee, after I fired him, after he stole all my stuff, he went on the run. The cops were looking for him for breaking and entering. And he went into a Speedway and grabbed all the lottery tickets off the counter. And you know how they have a plastic case of all the scratch offs? He grabbed the whole thing of scratch offs. And then he started going around to all the gas stations and convenience stores trying to trade in the winners and got caught. So he went to jail for a year. And when he got out, he moved to California to work for a marijuana grower facility. So I guess he found, you know, his happy place in California. Marty, he got deeper and deeper and deeper into drug use. All right. These two guys were renting from a property manager I was working for. That's how I met them. Okay. I remember that. I was working for a property manager and they were living at the property manager property. He is in jail for, I think, a long time. He got a girl pregnant, drug use. I think he was stalking some woman, and I think he's in the Sarasota County Jail or in a prison facility. But these guys broke into my house a couple times, stole everything without a plug. All right. They didn't take the toaster, but they took all the televisions, all the computers, all my spare change. I never wore or had jewelry. I don't have watches or any of that. They stole my shotgun, you know, a bunch of things they could sell their buddies and stuff, all right? I hired another kid. I think I ran an ad on Facebook Marketplace. I forget this guy's name. He lived in Bradenton, and he worked for me for about a month. I bought him a truck. I got him a phone. Then he started drinking. He was drinking all night long and all morning long and stopped showing up to work early, okay? So I ended up firing him. He ended up wanting to fight me. I guess he never got the opportunity to fight me because well, you know where I'm at. You know my schedule. So anytime you want to beat me up, you know where I'm at. Well, he never went forward with that threat. So I don't know what's going on with him. I would say he's still alive. One of the guys I hired, his name's Ron. He was an ex-school teacher. This dude was smart. He had a master's degree in teaching. He was about this tall, wore glasses, had really nice brown hair, very, very smart. He lost his teaching job because he drank so much. He came to me and he wanted to change his life, and I think he drank over 30 beers a day. Okay. He ended up, I ended up firing him because he was coming in drunk all the time. He didn't want mentoring. He didn't want anything. He didn't want AA. He didn't want nothing. And I think one night they found him dead in his bed, in his bunk. So that was a shame. You know, he was a super nice guy. We had a lot of nice conversations. I tried to help him. Was zero. Okay, we already talked about Mike. All right, I hired another guy named Mark. He had drug problems. I think he was doing cocaine. And I live out in the middle of nowhere, and people like to honk their horn when I'm making videos. So I find it interesting that when I make a video, loud motorcycles drive by and people honk their horn. So Mark got off drugs. I mentored him. There wasn't an hour that didn't go by I wasn't on the phone with him, helping him get off drugs. This guy turned into one of the biggest thieves I've ever met in my life. And that's a long story, and I'm not going to bore you with it. I hired another guy named Ron. He asked me for a job, and this guy told me he could handle the heat and loved doing lawn care and landscape work. I ended up having to let him go because he couldn't make it past 9:30 in the morning. And I was holding out high hopes for him. Good kid, just working outside wasn't his bag. Hired this two guys named Derek and Danny. They were brothers. Once again, it was just too hot for them. They couldn't handle the heat, so that didn't work out. These guys are still alive, all right? Danny, he likes to have car accidents. So he's always crashing cars from what I understand, and his back's messed up. He's wrecked cars, and then people have wrecked into him. So, and I had another guy I hired. I forget his name to save my life. He had some issues with paranoia and stuff, and he broke into my house also. He broke in my house when I went camping, and he didn't steal anything because these clowns here had stole everything from me, and I learned my lesson, and I bought the cheapest television you could get your hands on. All right. I had another guy working for me. I forget what his name was. He worked in the office. I found out when I was getting supplies or materials or making job site runs, he wasn't doing his job, and I had to fire him. Okay. I hired another guy named Tom, and I went camping or somewhere. He ended up stealing a bunch of stuff from me, and I had to fire him. I thought that guy was going to beat me up, so I gave him $250 to go away. I hired another guy named Paul, reference from a friend of mine. This guy played a trumpet and was a good guy. He had no skills or anything like that. He didn't end up working out. So it was too hot for him also. Good guy. He's probably still alive. You know, he didn't do drugs or anything. He just couldn't handle the heat. Then we got another guy named Jimmy that I hired. I hired him to help me with my tree work, and he was taking advantage of my customers, and I ended up firing him. I hired another guy named Tim to do my tree work, and ended up having to fire him also because he wasn't doing a good job. And sometimes these guys you hire, if you're not babysitting them or keeping an eye on them, they'll steal from you, or they'll take advantage of you by not doing the job right. Okay, so got bad reports from them on jobs that I sent them out on, and they no longer work for me. And I'm surprised I forgot to put Brandon's name on here. Brandon I hired over a year ago. He's the guy that stole all my stuff from me that I had to take to court. So we all know about Brandon. So hiring employees is tough. You're going to have to go through a lot of them to find a good one. And I've had no good experiences with employees. So I have a bunch more that I forgot their names, and I'll think about it tomorrow and go, oh, I forgot to add him to the list, but I'm not going to do another video on them. If I don't remember them, they weren't worth remembering, I guess. I'm surprised I forgot to put Brandon's name on here, but he made the list. So being an entrepreneur ain't what it's cracked up to be. Everybody sees the golden statue, at the end, but they don't see all the nonsense I had to go through. I needed help. I needed people to help me dig, move things, get the accounts done and stuff. People were coming to me, hey, I got jobs for you to do. Russell does stuff. Can you knock them out? Yeah, I can get them done. And then these are the guys I tried to have help me. So this is Russell with Russell Does Stuff. This is true. All right? It's starting to rain, and it might start lightning here in a second. So I'm going to end this video. Catch you on the next one.